We're live! Hello, everyone! Here we are. You wouldn't know it, but I did already start another stream. But I selected the wrong stream. Here we are, though. Hello, everyone. How are you? The last day of testing, eh? Oh, sorry. Shakedown. The last day of the shakedown, not testing. I don't want to get sued by the Bahrain circuit. The last day of the shakedown, day 5. Hello, everyone. How are you? Welcome, welcome. I have already gone live. I accidentally clicked the wrong stream. So some of you were in there. Now you're back over here. So welcome. Good to see you all. We're all together now. We're all together. Welcome. Good to see you. It's Friday. It's Friday then, and Saturday, Sunday. What? I'm very happy it's Friday. It's been a very busy and long week at work. So I am having a drinky poo. It is a obviously drink responsibly, always, guys. It is a Bailey's espresso martini. Little one's asleep. The missus is out. Can you tell? Can you tell? Cheers, everyone. Bailey's at the ready. Yeah, Bailey's at the ready. But I hope you're good. Good to see you, Andy, Carl, Ald, Camo. Welcome, everyone. Mark, good to see you. Dusko, Peter, it's Friday. We've finally had 5 days of testing / shakedown. And well, it feels like, I've said it once already, but I'm going to say it again. It feels like Friday. Did anyone watch? Did anyone keep an eye on the footage that popped up, or just Twitter in general today, or just social media? It felt like security. It felt like F1 didn't pay security to cover the Friday of this shakedown, because my goodness, it feels like we got more footage than we got any other day this week, and imagery as well. So I've got a little bit to show you if you haven't. Some that shouldn't get into copyright region, but yeah, this Alpine image that we've got on here, Gasly, 164 laps for him today. Woo-wee. Quietly going about their business. I feel like, and we're going to touch on it as well, because I feel like there is pretty much one team that is taking all of the news stories, basically taking up all of the news spread at the moment, which is Mercedes. And everyone else is kind of being forgotten about and happily going about their business. But I think after this shakedown, it is shaping up to be a good season as we head into Bahrain in a couple of weeks' time for testing. So yeah, plenty to discuss. New fastest lap times as well today. Multiple laps within the 116s, which we saw from George Russell yesterday in the Mercedes. And a fastest lap of the week set by a certain individual that may get people excited heading into this season. So yeah, plenty to discuss. We'll have a look at the lap times in a second. But welcome, everyone. Dry January, no alcohol here. I respect that, Carl. I respect that. I don't drink a lot. Every now and then. So hence why I don't do it. But I respect anyone who's doing it, of course. New year, new me, and all so forth. Very good to see you, Heraclea. Spoiler alert incoming, yeah. Spoiler alert incoming. Ald, you asked about what is the point of this shakedown. If you haven't been tuning in, one, where have you been? But the point of this shakedown is that basically, because we have the new regulations this year, and they're quite a dramatic regulation change, primarily due to the engine unit being changed so dramatically since 2014, really, in over a decade. Before some of you were even born, which is absolutely crazy to think about. Yes, I do have some viewership of those who are under the age of 12 years old. It seems. That's what my analytics show, at least. Credit to you for being enjoying the sport through ourselves, and welcome. And well, basically, the teams put together this shakedown by themselves. They came together. They said we wanted extra time to test out everything and make sure we could systems check, basically all of the parts, all of the engines and everything before the 2-week testing in Bahrain. And that's why this is technically called a shakedown and not a test, because Bahrain has paid a considerable amount of money for I think it's the next 10 years for the testing to be held, pre-season testing to be held at their circuit. So for legal reasons, it's not called a test, it's called a shakedown. And they came together, all of the teams, to participate here this weekend, except for Williams, of course, who did want to be here but couldn't make it. So that's basically it. Because it is a brand new regulation change, it's so big of a change, they want as much practice time as possible. So, because the last time, the reason why they've done this is because last time there was an engine change in the regulations, which was 2014. It was a bit of a bleep show. Not many laps were conducted. There were lots of breakdowns, lots of issues. Whereas this time around, actually, it's been the complete opposite, because these cars have done a considerable amount of mileage, which we'll get onto very shortly. Where's the shirt? What the Ferrari shirt? Not out yet. Not out yet. You commend the teams doing this shakedown event. Yeah, it's been good. I mean, it's just a shame that it has been so private, and the media at least haven't been able to get in. And I don't know. It just feels like it's been unnecessarily locked down. Bahrain, of course, will be. Well, even then, we head to Bahrain, and this is a bugbear of mine. But the first week was said to us that it was going to be completely broadcast. Now that's not the case. We're only going to get 1 hour per day of the first 3 days, the first week, which will be at the end of the day as well. Similar to kind of this, really. 1 hour at the end of the day, where we're going to see any broadcast on TV and, of course, highlights packages and so forth. But then the second week is where we'll get the full coverage, where I will then be live streaming to you all and providing you 3 days of coverage for myself. So looking forward to it. This season will be special. We hope so, Peter. We hope so. Big Oil pays the bills, of course, Anne, of course. Who was the fastest lap of the week? Well, shall we get into it? Shall we have a look at what was a busy day at Friday and have a look at the unofficial day 5 times? And well, if you're a fan of a certain driver, this is going to look very good for you. Actually, to be honest, it looks very good for everyone today, I think. Because here are the unofficial day 5 times, and well, Lewis Hamilton, bearing in mind, the fastest lap set this week thus far prior to today was George Russell with a 16.4. Lewis Hamilton, yes, Lewis Hamilton, 67 laps completed, did a 1:16.3. Lando Norris in the McLaren did a 1:16.59 with 86 laps on the board. Charles Leclerc also did a 1:16.6 with 78 laps, and Oscar Piastri did a 1:17.4. Max Verstappen, we were discussing him yesterday about whether Red Bull will be able to get back out on track at all this week after Isaac Hadjar's crash. Max had only done laps in the rain on Tuesday morning, and well, he was able to complete a full day of testing for the 4-time world champion, 118 laps. Pierre Gasly, Alpine, quietly going about their business with a brand new Mercedes engine and gearbox this season. 164 laps. I don't think you realise how much of an effort that is on the human body to do 164 laps in an F1 car in one day. Try and do that on the sim. It is tough, let alone in real life. 164 laps is ridiculous, and credit to Pierre Gasly for doing that, because that's a feat in itself from an endurance perspective. Esteban Ocon, 85 laps. Haas did 190 laps today with Esteban Ocon and Ollie Behrman. This is the reliability of these cars is ridiculous. Of course, still not pushing it to the complete and utter limits, but we saw in 2014, like I said earlier on, that when we brought new engines we had new engines for the regulations, they broke down left, right, and centre. We clearly haven't had that instance today. Nico Hulkenberg, much better for Audi. Audi finally getting a decent haul of laps on the board today. 78 and 67 laps for Nico Hulkenberg and Gabriel Bortoleto. Fernando Alonso, Aston Martin, they were only just able to get out on track yesterday. 4 laps conducted before Lance Stroll had to pull over Well, that is all Lance Stroll has done this week, is those 4 laps, because Fernando Alonso in that Aston Martin was able to do 61 laps. A 120.7 for him. Nothing to scoff at there because, well, they are clearly very much behind everyone else. A lot of system checks for them. And I will get onto the blue light. I read something interesting about the blue light earlier. That is on the back of the Aston Martin and the reason for it. And Cadillac did 54 laps today, so in Valtteri Bottas's hands. So not as many as everyone else. I think if you're a Cadillac fan, you would have liked to have seen them do more. But still, a decent haul of laps pretty much every single day for Cadillac in both Perez and Bottas's hands. But yeah, Lewis with his mojo back in the car. Well, we'll get on to Lewis Hamilton's comments as well. And I'm in, of course, the Miss Apex chat and stuff, and we talk. And there's a few Lewis Hamilton fans in there. And they've been a bit concerned, really, about Lewis's demeanour this week with his interviews and so forth. And today, there is definitely no concerns about Lewis Hamilton's demeanour, that is for sure. He seems very positive about today, a lot more buoyant, and Lewis Hamilton is one of those drivers who wears his heart on his sleeve, and you can very easily tell whether things are going well or not with Lewis Hamilton. So yeah, he seems very happy with what happened today and his progress. Body totally knackered. That's more than 3 Grand Prix distances. What, for Pierre Gasly? 164. Yeah, it's a serious amount of lap time that he did today. Serious amount of lap time. Mark, am I saying that the teams all agreed on something? Has this ever happened before? I know, right? I think the last time they all agreed on something is when they tried to sue Max Mosley and Bernie Ecclestone, wasn't it? But that's the last time they decided to... they actually agreed on something. But yeah, that is 164 laps for one driver is absolutely insane. And well, how does that compare then, the laps today, to the overall mileage and the overall laps that the teams have done this week? And well, thankfully, someone has done the effort for me, and I'm, of course, going to give complete credit to this individual. It is this individual here, Roberto F1. Give him a follow on Twitter. Of course, in, I think, Spanish, maybe. I'm not entirely sure what language it is. But basically, this is his calculations of the mileage and the laps that they've done this week. So Mercedes, understandably, have topped. All the talk this week has been about Mercedes. 499 laps. Some I've seen have deemed it to be one more at 500 laps. But even so, they have set the most laps comfortably ahead of everyone else. Ferrari... bearing in mind they did Tuesday in the wet as well, they did 435 laps. Mercedes had running in blue lights every single day. So they had dry running every single day. I just said blue lights because I saw the chat pop up there with blue lights. Haas, also with a Ferrari engine in the back of their car, did 387 laps. Alpine, with the Mercedes engine, did 345. This is the thing with Alpine. Like, of course, we don't know what runs they've been on. We don't know what they've been, how much the engine has been turned up. We don't know what stress they've been putting on the car. As I've said also yesterday as well, the fuel is a big part of it as well. Not every team may or may not be running the sustainable fuels right now because that has been vetoed for this week, whereas when it comes to Bahrain they'll have to start running that, so we'll see a bit more of a true performance and maybe a bit more of the pecking order when it comes to Bahrain, but even then that's not going to be a true indication when we head to the first race in Melbourne. Racing Bulls and Red Bull in the middle there, solid from them too, 319 to 303. Not too bad considering Isaac Hadjar did crash that car. McLaren, only 287 laps. You'd expect them to be a lot higher considering they have a Mercedes engine in the back of their car. So 287 laps for them. They had a big fuel flow issue yesterday with Oscar Piastri, which hampered him to only around 50 laps. So yesterday was really where they were hampered. Audi picked up a lot more and did the majority of their running today after a week of issues, 239 laps. Cadillac 164, so yeah, Cadillac, not a lot of running this week in the grand scheme of things. Quite far off. So hopefully they'll be able to pick up, and they've been able to achieve what they wanted to achieve this week and pick up in Bahrain. Aston Martin, as we know, only got to track yesterday, only got out on circuit within the last hour and did 4 laps. And then today, the majority of those laps were in Fernando Alonso's hands. So look, Mercedes, Ferrari, and McLaren, even though McLaren did a 187 kilometers, what I would say is that these 116s that they set, Lando, Charles, Lewis, Oscar with the 117, what they set there was, at least the top 3, was kind of quali run. I say quali runs, loose quali runs, because George Russell said on the Wednesday evening that the next day, which was Thursday, yesterday for us, was going to be some more performance runs where they use the whole deployment. So quali runs basically is what he alluded to. But because of the battery deployment and so forth now, and the extra power available to them from the battery, they were going to do those tests or do those performances yesterday, and that's what obviously it was him able to achieve the 16.4. Same clearly from Lewis Hamilton and Lando Norris today, and Charles Leclerc. So, but all within the same ballpark region. Of course, don't look always into too much lap times, as we know with testing, but still bodes very well that Lewis Hamilton was able to achieve a time slightly faster than Mercedes, and that Mercedes, all the talk this week has been about Mercedes, and they are the favourites heading into this championship. The drivers, if you watch any of their interviews, Kimi Antonelli or George Russell, they clearly seem very buoyant. They're trying to hide their smiles and keep a bit of a poker face as best as possible, but they are clearly very, very happy and very positive heading into this season, especially after this week. But Ferrari, I would say it looks good for them as well. I know as a Tifosi, I know as a Lewis Hamilton fan, and just as Ferrari, anyone who's been following Ferrari for many years will know not to get their hopes up too. We'll know not to get their hopes up too much, but Ferrari have a good history when they're able to start the season strong. Ferrari aren't a team that really picks up in the middle of the season. They're a team that if they win, they have to start the season off strong, and it seems like it's a good start to them. At least a good indication that, look, everything is kind of where it needs to be. They've got a good platform to build upon. Whether it's a good enough platform to compete with Mercedes, I don't know. But we will see, of course. These cars could look very different from what we've seen this week to a month's time in Melbourne. That is for sure. Good to see you all. Much appreciated. This is the year, Mike. This is the year, yeah. Red Bull not bad laps for waiting for parts after Hadjar's crash. Exactly. Yep, exactly. Have they explained if they will be showing deployment of the different options? If the use of the system going to be hidden? If it's early season? Just curious. No, Sid. So we have no idea yet in relation to what information is going to be available to us as viewers, and a big indication to that will be the data that is available to us in testing at Bahrain. That is where we'll have access to the live data, and we will be able to see, okay, what information is available to us from the battery. I'm going to presume, this is my assumption, I'm going to presume that as viewers, we will only be able to see whether a driver has boost mode available to them, and whether if it's turned on or off. That's what I think. Like DRS, I think that's the only information that we're going to know. I think in relation to the actual amount of power usage that they have available to them in the battery is going to be private, because I don't think the teams all have, if you've seen the coverage up and down the pit wall, you would have seen that they always have, of course, their own track maps and so forth, and all the data that they have available to them, but there's always a live feed of the F1 TV feed, basically trackside feed, and they get the same graphics as what we do as fans. And if that is shown on TV, then the pit wall will be able to see that information as well. Or if it's available via the F1 live data, which we be able to have access to on our streams and so forth, then they'll be able to have access to that as well. And I just don't think, unfortunately, we will have that information to hand. It will be just a case of they're within 1 second, like the DRS was, and they're able to use boost mode, and boost mode is either turned on or off. I hope we get more, but I don't hold up much hope. That's what I think we'll get. You just watched the highlights. Have they posted the highlights now? I was looking. They post them so late, don't they? I feel like this is the most amount of editing that they've done in years, F1, which is edit the highlights of the shakedown. Because normally they're so quick with race day. Like they edit the race highlights so quickly, whereas the shakedown, they're being a lot more meticulous with it. So, is boost mode the old DRS replacement, or is that overtake? Sorry, overtake mode, basically. Yes, Mike. So, overtake mode is where they will get an additional amount of wattage power available to them, which will enable them to, overtake in the designated zones if they're within 1 second of the car ahead of them, like DRS. That's the replacement of DRS, basically. Active aero, we've touched upon it already multiple times this week. We will not really need to keep an eye out on whether drivers are in straight line mode or not, because it is available to use every single lap. So there might be times when teams don't even want to use it. I'll be very surprised if no one decides to use it when they're allowed to, because you can still lift and coast and that, but maybe it will be better for them when it comes to restoring the battery. But active aero is not really something that we need available to us as fans to know whether they're in that mode or not, even from a data only perspective. By the way, I feel like my grade of the Audi livery has gone up 1 point, from a 5 to a 6. It dropped down to a 5 yesterday, and I feel like it's up to a 6. But maybe that's just because this image is probably highly edited. This is probably the best the Audi liveries look to me, to be honest. I wish we had just push to pass. So much easier to understand. I agree, Mike. And don't rule that out. That may be the case in the future, that push to pass is implemented in the future because of maybe the difficulties that we see in the coming years with this, with the whole battery usage right now. Others are probably hiding performance, Aheem. 100% they are. No one is showing their full hand yet. No one is showing their full hand yet. Mahida, these cars look nice as hell until you realise their anatomy is trash. I still think they look very nice. More exciting for Ferraris, but it's only a spec car. Yeah, spec A car, exactly. And the same for Mercedes as well. And this is the thing when you look at, let's say, we'll get onto this footage, but the Aston Martin here that you can see on screen right now. When I say that this car is aggressive, well, that means that there is a lot of aerodynamic, there's a lot of aerodynamic components to this car. There's a lot going on aerodynamically, and you can see here, just with, all the different parts, the deep underbite here of the side pods. You have the cooling inlet there, or outlet of, which it says number 8 here. Like, there's a lot going on in this Aston Martin. It's very aggressive, whereas that's all well and good, but it means that if it doesn't work, you could be in a very sticky situation, because you've kind of pigeonholed yourself, and with the cost cap era now, you aren't able to then just completely start from scratch again. And as Mercedes found out in the last regulations, if you go aggressive at the start of the season and it doesn't work, then it ruins you for the whole regulations pretty much, because you're always a year behind your competitors in development. And of course, some of the lower teams will want to take that risk, and some, like Mercedes, Ferrari, it seems, have been a bit more conservative with their designs, and the Red Bull, I would say, has been quite aggressive, especially with the slimmed side pods, which is in this image here. You can see that the side pod is very slim. It cuts in around here. It's very compact. The big air box there to ensure, obviously, try and maximize the cooling, probably to try and offset obviously the lack of cooling that they have here, with it being tight and compact at the rear. Almost a zero pod concept that Mercedes used with the W13 and started off the ground effect era. So yeah, those are the risks that you take. It can pay off probably very well for you, but it's a big if, of course. We haven't seen the full potential what the cars can do. Oh no, undoubtedly we haven't. Undoubtedly, there's still so much left on the table. This week really was all about the primary objective of the teams this week was to make sure that all of the new electronics, the engine, the car itself worked as designed, basically. And then if you was ahead of schedule, which probably Mercedes and Ferrari were, and even McLaren with their lack of running by what is it seems, they were able to then start pushing somewhat more. And this is an opportunity. Barcelona is still a very different track to Bahrain. It's an opportunity, if you could get ahead of schedule, to try and start testing out setups, try and start setting out genuine performance of your car, to take that data over to Bahrain, where obviously it has different elements, a different type of circuit somewhat to Barcelona. And will have, of course, different conditions at Bahrain as well. Won't be hot, but it will be warmer than what it was here at Barcelona this week. Teams finding the balance of these systems this year is going to be interesting. 100% is going to be. Probably off season on season staff number, resulting in extended editing time. Maybe. I think the tech in relation to F1, yeah, maybe. I think the tech world is moving towards solid-state batteries too. Google it. Teams may be innovating on it here. Interested. Yeah, I'm not too familiar with the whole battery technology. It's something, as I said, overall, technology-wise, I have a basic knowledge. I'm not the guy you want to come to and ask in-depth tech questions, engineering questions when it comes to F1. I have a very base knowledge, and I'm always trying to learn more, of course, but there are others who are better suited for that. And if I relay information to you, it's because I've got my information from those kind of, experts. I say experts because who knows if they're experts, but you know. Dusko, Leclerc stated they pushed the limits a bit and was happy with performance, yeah. But we'll get on to that shortly in relation to what they actually said, of course, via Adam Cooper, our reliable source this week. And I highly recommend that you follow Adam Cooper, who is a long-time freelance journalist of F1. But here's something interesting. Hulkenberg went off at turn 10 earlier on, but he managed to rejoin the track. We saw a few offs today. Of course, we saw at this very corner, turn 10, which starts sector 3. It's at the end of turn 10, basically. If you can picture Barcelona, it's the middle straight of the circuit. At the end, it's that corner that goes left. So it's quite a long left-hand corner that starts the tight, twisty sector 3. That's the corner that you're talking of here. And it seems that Nico Hulkenberg had a bit of an off here into turn 10, into the gravel. So you can see here. And drivers have been having issues here because that corner is very much so rear limited than it is front limited. And we have seen that these cars in particular have a lot more torque available to them, to the rear of the car. And the drivers, I think some of them have been caught out by that this week with the energy deployment to the rear of the car. Also combined with the fact that it's been a very cold Barcelona here this week. Sometimes the track temperatures have been reported to be in the single figures, which is conditions that these F1 drivers and these F1 cars won't be driven in all year at all. So another one that we saw was, which was very interesting today, and I did think of this, and I always think of this, to be honest, is that surely teams want to figure out how their car performs in dirty air. It's all well and good designing your car in a wind tunnel with clean air traveling over your car. But how does your design handle dirty air? And I've always thought about this, and I feel like not enough teams probably do this, and it's difficult because if you haven't got two, you can't really, you're not allowed to have two cars on track at one time when it comes to testing. So you can't run one car behind the other or so forth to figure out the dirty air concept. But Oscar Piastri, I don't know whether the Audi team and the McLaren team at lunch decided to have a chat and an agreement that Oscar Piastri could basically follow Gabriel Bortoleto for a few laps, just to gather some important data, because look how close Oscar Piastri is here. Apparently he was this close behind Bortoleto for around 3 to 4 laps. And they weren't racing. This was genuine data gathering for the McLaren team, which is clever, very clever. Because this is what these cars are designed to do. This is the whole reason we've gone to these regulations, is to try and decrease the dirty air. And McLaren last year as well, that was really where they fell short, was when they got caught in traffic. If they didn't qualify on pole or on the front row, they struggled to get past other cars. I mean, lots of drivers did, to be honest with you, but McLaren in particular did. While they were the quickest overall over a single lap with qualifying, when it came to actual race pace and stuck in the midfield, which Lando Norris found himself a couple of times at the start of the season, it was difficult to overtake. So I think this is very smart, and I'll be surprised if other teams don't try and utilise this to some extent when it comes to Bahrain as well, because it's important information gathering. It's so weird seeing these unofficial camera angles. I know. F1 cars should talk steer if the if the tyres grip and full-on throttle in the lower gears, or if slippery. Yep. I think more so the spins that we've seen and the lockups we see have always been due to probably the tyres not being up to temperature. That's more so that I would presume, because they're also using the harder compounds here at Barcelona. So they're using the hardest range of compounds here at Barcelona, and it's been bone cold. So yeah, doesn't bode very well. This is Cadillac. This is one of the Cadillac drivers going off as well. Roberto again. This would have been Bottas. Big lockup into turn 10 at the end of the middle straight there. Lots of gravel on the outside. Big lock up on the right hand side. So yeah, still trying to dial it in. Nobody complained about tyres yet during interviews. Yeah, that's true. No one has complained about the tyres yet. I'm sure they will once maybe they start to lean on them somewhat more. But yeah, it's all a learning curve this season, Carl. 100% it is. Bottas and Perez, more than 500 Grand Prix starts. Can't wait for these oldies to get involved with the youngsters. Well, hopefully they can, and I hope that Cadillac is very positive. So I've just been informed, actually, I am going to be appearing. A clip of mine has been taken, and I will be appearing on a documentary about Cadillac. I don't know in which capacity, but I've seen the clip that is mentioned, and I do talk positively about Cadillac. So hopefully, yeah, it's not me slagging them off, that's for sure. So we'll see what documentary that is, but that's interesting news. Keep an eye on the F2 this year, Dusko. Dino Bogdanovic will replace Dino Ferrari, Enzo's son. Mark my words, it's going to be the perfect PR. Yeah, I always try and keep as much of a keen eye on F2 as I can. With a little one now, I don't keep an eye on F2 as much as I'd like, because I'm normally changing nappies and making bottles and so forth, and yeah, looking after her going a million miles an hour, then F2 in the mornings. But yeah, I try and keep an eye on it as much as I can, because that is where obviously the future F1 drivers will come from. So get myself Silverstone guest tickets in return. Yeah, I mean, look, my day job, I work in construction. I have been very much so letting anyone and everyone know who I work with that I love F1, that I have this channel, and I do what I do. I'm very proud of what I do as well. And yeah, I am trying to line up some tickets. I'm trying to line up some attendance. I have obviously, it would get into the way of the wash-alongs, but yeah, I need to attend an F1 race at least once in my life, guys, don't I? Come on. Considering I've never been to one. Do we have new compounds this year, Mike? So we don't have new compounds. I believe it is still from my understanding, it is still the C1 to the C6. However, the tyres are smaller, and they, year on year, Pirelli do alter the construction of their tyre to handle the cars that they've got. So, hopefully, Pirelli, with these new cars, with them being slightly slower, I think what will be good, and this is my hope for the tyres, right? So, these cars go quicker in a straight line. That's what the teams have already said. They're quicker in a straight line, but they're slower in the corners. And, well, sure, I think this is an ample opportunity now to go to Lewis Hamilton's comments today. Where are they? I did get them up. Why are they not here? Bear with me. Are they here? That's Charles Leclerc. That's Mekis. I saw... Hang on a second. Lewis Hamilton's comments today, and this is relevant to what I'm going to talk about with the tyres as well. So Lewis Hamilton today did an interview where he was a lot more buoyant at the end of the day after setting the fastest lap of the week. And, well, he said, if I can find it, I believe I saved it. Surely I did. Surely. Or I sent it to someone. Unbelievable. I can't believe I didn't bookmark it. Wait a second. So, here we go. I'm not going to play this actual interview. This is from a very popular Lewis Hamilton supporting page, but this is the actual interview. I have listened to the interview. These quotes here are actually what is said from the interview that he's done with F1. And it says here, he says, the new generation of cars are a lot more enjoyable to drive. The new car generation is actually a little bit more fun to drive. It's oversteery and snappy and sliding, but it's a little bit easier to catch. I would definitely say more enjoyable, but we definitely have work to do to improve, like everybody else. We've had great debriefs. I really feel the winning mentality in every single person in the team more than ever, so it's a positive. So, these cars have been designed to be quicker in a straight line and then have less performance in the corners. So, and of course with the whole battery mode and so forth, and the straight line mode and active aero, this is a positive. Now, when it comes to the tyres, if it's oversteery and snappy and sliding, that's going to degrade the tyres more. That's going to overheat the tyres if it's a rear limited circuit, and if it's a front limited circuit, then it's going to degrade those tyres considerably more. And that's a good thing for us as fans, because what that does is that it means that the tyres, if Pirelli aren't conservative with the compound selections that they choose, because while they could make tyres that maybe... while they're going to make tyres and provide tyres that don't need to take as much stress as what they previously have done with the energy output of the fastest, heaviest F1 cars in history, which has been last year's cars, they should be able to create tyres that will degrade at a reasonable rate, should make it easier for them to select the suitable compounds for the race weekend and not be overly cautious and select a harder compound than necessary, so that we just get always the one-stop strategy. And the drivers, as well as the battery mode and so forth, they have to worry about their tyre saving. And I know on the grand scheme of things, on the base level, that sounds boring, but that is actually what provides good racing, is when we have tyre offsets, when we have teams that are able to look after their tyres better than others, and that provides us defense versus attack and so forth. So I'm hoping that with how these cars and the drivers are explaining how these cars are going to drive through the corners, that with Pirelli not having to now create the most durable tyre ever in the world because of what we've had before in F1, it's going to provide a good combination for us. So fingers crossed, fingers crossed. Hey, Steve, good to see you, mate. Oh, got me on the big TV. Whee, in 65-inch glory. Is there a limit on the PSI of the tyres this season? I presume there probably will be, Carl. I don't know that information yet. It'd be really nice to see if Pirelli nailing it for once, getting praise from the teams. It really would. It really would. Camping at Silverstone was mint, Mike, was it? Yeah, I mean, I'd like to just go and attend one just for the atmosphere. I mean, do you know what? I'm not fussed about going to a race day. I'm genuinely not. I would like to just go on the Friday practice. I'd like to go see these cars in person as an enthusiast of the sport and just see these cars from as many vantage points that I possibly can. And the only way that you can truly do that, and the best opportunity to do that, is on a Friday, even though it is still very busy. So, yeah, that's what I'd like to do. By the way, remember the W11's rear suspension that was high-mounted upper wishbone? The one that was them in Australia and told the drivers to avoid curbing. I was 15, but the AMR 26 is that. Look. Yeah, I have seen that rear wishbone that the Aston Martin has. It has raised quite a bit of topic of conversation online. So, yeah, it's intriguing to see what they've done there. Because it's something that no other team thus far, other than Williams, that we haven't seen yet, has done. So it'd be interesting to see. Race day has the best crowd atmosphere. Of course it does, yeah. And sporting events are all about atmosphere and so forth. Like I've been fortunate to go to a number of sporting events, some sporting events that I don't even like necessarily, but the atmosphere makes it worthwhile. You know, you get sucked into everyone else's enjoyment and passion. I remember how good Lewis was in pre-2022 cars, not just because he was in a Mercedes that was quick, but the driving styles. So yes. Look, I've discussed this many a times, and many others have as well, that the ground effect era cars had a particular way of driving, and not just driving because of the cars themselves, but the tyres. I think, personally, the one thing that Lewis struggled with most in the ground effect era was the tyre management, just the tyres, how those tyres operated. George Russell was quite vocal about the Pirelli tyres, and many others have as well over the years. And Lewis never really was. Do you remember when Lewis had that? There was conspiracy theories going around that Mercedes were sabotaging him with the tyre blankets and so forth, and he was complaining, guys, my tyres aren't up to temperature and things like this or whatever when he's leaving the garage. Well, I don't think there was an issue there at all. What it was is that Lewis was just struggling to get these very sensitive Pirelli tyres in the ground effect era in the right window when it came to qualifying. And he just wasn't able to do it. And what happened is that he was then driving a car that didn't have tyres that were in the right window. So he was qualifying down in struggling to make it into Q3, and when he made it into Q3, he was qualifying P7, P8, and it was very difficult period for him, and it made him look at himself, and he was so down on his qualifying performances and that. And then when it came to the race, where obviously you have more ample opportunity and more time to get those tyres up to temperature and that, he always fared a lot better, and especially when it came to races where tyre management was key, he would still be able to do that. And I think that's really where his lack of confidence originated from. Of course, Mercedes never built a good enough car for him. But even then, look, if he had a good enough car, would he have been able to get on top of it and win a championship? I don't know. I'm not so sure. But now the cars are heading back in a direction where, yes, Lewis does prefer this sort of driving, and it has been discussed as well by numerous sources that the drivers are excited about these cars because they can make the difference, and also it seems that these cars have a much larger window of operation that they can actually, it doesn't matter to a certain extent what your driving style is, but these cars will be able to be tailored to any sort of driving style, and that's brilliant for the drivers and for us as fans as well, because it should provide better racing, closer racing, and if you're a fan of a certain driver, yes, perform better in this era of F1 cars than previous. I always figured Lewis didn't develop ground effect era cars because of his heavy braking style, making the rear go light doesn't work on the cars, and that. Yeah, that's also an element as pardon me. That's also an element as well, for sure, is that the braking, the way that the braking was required, it was very much no trail braking in the ground effect era cars. It seemed to be that you had to be very much like V style And that's not something that Lewis was liking. I mean, that really came to note in the Ferrari last year, where you saw the time loss that Lewis was having over Charles Leclerc and the braking style. Excuse me. I'm trying to talk here. I'm trying to talk F1. So yeah, that was also evident as well. But then the tyres. So I think there was a compounding. There was numerous factors. And look, ultimately, like any sport, you need to be confident in the car. If you're confident in the car and the machinery underneath you, you're going to drive better. Simple as. It's quite a simple formula. And that's clearly what Lewis didn't have at all in the ground effect era. Sort of size reduction of the tyres is a loss of about 10% surface area, which would impact corner grip. Yeah, definitely. But do not take that as a negative, ladies and gents, because less grip means better racing. It truly does. Less grip means better racing. That's why when we have slightly slippery surfaces, the racing gets better. The driver ability comes into it more. Trust me, it's better. And that's why I'm excited about this year. To follow you, the race you watch on TV and you go to the race, go to the atmosphere. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, exactly. If that's the case, we're going to see them in tight battles. I do hope so. Heracleria, I waited over 20 years to get to a race, but one of the best experiences, I can always recommend Silverstone. Yeah, that's true. That's true. So that's Lewis Hamilton's comments today. It seems to be that there's another comment from Lewis Hamilton here as well, where he adds on his the winning mentality at Ferrari. Everyone's positive and pretty enthusiastic. We're under no illusions. We know we have work to do. Mercedes have done a great running as well. I think Red Bull, Haas did some great running as well. So we don't really know where we are. But I think it's a solid first week and we can really build from here. There may be some big leaps that we need to take. Development's going to be key and really making sure that we leave no stone unturned. It's going to take all of us to be at our best. And I'm sure that everyone is coming with new energy this year, which is great. So yeah, he has to be positive about the way that this week has ended and Ferrari as a whole. Charles Leclerc also seems to be very positive as he has added some comments today, which is up here via Adam Cooper. He sums up his first week in the Ferrari FF26 as the first day was a tricky one because driving on the wet conditions wasn't easy, especially with a completely new car, completely new systems. So to make sure that everything was working properly in those conditions was very difficult. That was them first driving the car on Tuesday this week, where Isaac Hadjar eventually binned his Red Bull into the barrier at the last corner. Charles adds, but I think it's a very valuable experience going forward. In case we drive on the wet during a race weekend, we'll at least have that experience already, which is a good thing. And the last 2 days have been positive. All the tests we wanted to do, we had in mind, we did. So yeah, just like Mercedes, Ferrari achieved a lot this week. Not quite as many laps, but nearly second most amount. And clearly starting to push a bit more at the end of the week as well with those 116s that they set. You just have to look at the Formula Ford series. The racing is close and more driver related in relation, yes, to having less grip. Only getting on the hope train when you podium in red, yeah. So that's Charles Leclerc adding today. Beautiful image, by the way. The Ferrari does look very good every single time I see it. These cars overall just look amazing. So, moving on from Ferrari, Max Verstappen, importantly, got out on track today. And he set an eventual 118 laps with a fastest lap time of a 1 minute 17.5. So Max getting a serious amount of laps in today. Previously, he only got laps in on Tuesday, and it wasn't very many. So he adds today that I think overall pretty decent. The first morning I didn't get to do too many laps, also with the weather, basically. But today was good. I did a lot of laps. We learned a lot. Still a lot of things that we want to look into and do better, but that's normal, I guess. And in general for us, with the new engine to do, the amount of laps that we did is very nice, and it's a good start for us. And I think that's really going to be the overall takeaway from this week, is that everyone's engines did what they needed to do. Like, they got in a considerable amount of lap time. I would say that the worst performing engine this week was the Audi engine. But everything was really positive from a reliability aspect. So, yeah, the teams this week will be starting to think about setup, thinking about performance more in Bahrain. So, yeah, we can start to pay a bit more attention to lap times and so forth. What livery do I think is do I rate in my top 5 with one being the best? I personally really like the Ferrari is my number 1. I think Red Bull number 2. I'm trying to remember. Ferrari's my number 1 though. I really do like the Ferrari at the moment. I'll rate my liveries when I see all of them eventually. Yeah, so that was Max Verstappen. Now moving on to Fernando Alonso. He was able to do a total of 61 laps today. Well, fastest lap time of a 1:20.7. Now, of course, Aston Martin only arrived at the circuit Wednesday evening, and then they spent all day Thursday basically putting the car together, and then the car only was able to do 4 laps out on track with Lance Stroll before he pulled over out on track. So Fernando Alonso did a lot today, and he says it was good. Definitely excited to be back in the car after the winter. For us, it's the first day. I know some of the teams did filming days or shakedowns at the beginning of January, and then the whole week here in Barcelona. But for us, it was really the very first day. So I think we had a positive one. 60 plus laps and the car is responding well. It's the first day and more to come, especially the last, I think, 2 weeks has been very, very intense. The factory trying to have the car ready, and we just made it to Barcelona in the last 2 days. So tremendous effort from everyone. I think it was phenomenal the last 48 hours. So yeah, that's Adrian Newey there, speaking to Fernando Alonso. And yeah, very, very positive day for them to get that many laps in what really was their truly first day out on track. The only Honda supplied engine. And we do have a video, I think, of the cars. Where is it? I'll see if I can find it. Bear with me. I thought I already had it up. I thought I already had it. So, this is via F1. So, we are going to play... I'm not going to play this because I could get copyright strikes, and I don't want to do that. But I'm going to pause the music. And this is the Cadillac. This is the Ferrari engine first. Listen to this, guys. That was the Cadillac. This is now the Red Bull. Sorry if this is a bit intermittent. That was the Red Bull. This is the Haas. Do you know what? I'm just going to show it. It's a lot easier. I'll just cut off the top so that it's not like... You can't see the F1 though. You can't see the logo. Right. Ready? Cadillac. Red Bull. Haas. Alpine. Don't know who that was. RB. Audi. Sorry, so I've got to pause it there. That last one was that was the Honda. That was Aston Martin. Listen to this, how different it sounds. So I feel like a lot of them sound similar, to be honest with you. But something that I wanted to bring up earlier was the Aston Martin blue flashing light that you can see here. So this blue flashing light. The reason why it might have sounded a bit different is because this blue light was on. And the reason for this blue light being on is that this season, if someone doesn't have the amount of super license points when it comes to practice sessions, the rookie sessions, they have to have a blue light running on the rear of their car. And basically, it's a warning light to the other drivers that this guy is a rookie. Basically, it doesn't have the amount of super license points required to drive in F1 full time when it comes to practice sessions this year. Now, what Aston Martin did with utilizing this is that we've got basically it's an L plate in F1. Yes, you're right, Andy. It's an L plate in F1, this blue light. And what Aston Martin did today, by utilising this blue light that people picked up upon yesterday, is that they basically told, it was them indicating to teams up and down the grid that they were not going to be fully deploying their battery. They were going to be going at a certain speed limit down the start-finish straight, because they were doing their own systems checks still. They were obviously, it's their first day out on track. And this is what that blue light was. So if anyone came up upon them down the start-finish straight or down the middle straight, they would know, I'm approaching the Aston Martin, and that car is, the closing speed is going to be very dramatic because they're not deploying their battery and their engine at full capacity. And they did remove this blue flag later on in the session, and they did start to run some more lap times in a quicker speeds, top speeds. But that's basically what it is. It is an L plate. It is pretty much an L plate. Do you know what? We're going to risk it. Fuck it. I do feel like the Honda's the only one you can really tell the difference. Yeah, definitely sound like engines, Connor, yeah. I feel like the RB, I could hear a bit more of a raspiness, than the others. But the Honda is the only one that sounds a bit different. But yeah, I don't think there's really any... I don't think there's real too much difference between them all, to be completely honest with you. That's what it seemed like to me there. But yeah, Aston Martin, very aggressive car, which, where's the images again? Here we go. Yeah, very aggressive design. We'll see how it plays out for them. It's a bold strategy, Cotton. In Newey we trust and so forth. There's a lot more going on that Aston Martin than I feel like there is any other car. And we'll see whether it works for them. But who knows? This could be the fastest car on the grid. The fastest designed car out there. But is Fernando Alonso and Lance Stroll the right driver pairing to get the most out of this car? I'll leave you guys with that thought. So, yeah. Moving up in relation to what else has been revealed today, or comments today. I'm not sure we're going to get too much more information. We'll talk about Lauren Mekies in a second as he talks about Red Bull's good start after a lot of laps were had on Monday, but negated by the Tuesday crash with Isaac Hadjar. I feel like all the other teams are being forgotten. The Merc has done a bonkers test. Connor, I 100%... Yeah, but the Merc... People are saying the Merc has done a bonkers test. Let's just bring up those times again. Right? Lewis just set a 16.3. Lando set a 16.5. Okay, arguably a 16.6. Charles did a 16.6. And then when you look at the total mileage done this week and the amount of laps done this week, Ferrari did 435. Bearing one of those days was completely rain hit and wet, and they weren't able to get as many laps in on a dry day that Mercedes were able to do. I mean, McLaren only did 287 laps, and yet they were hampered, of course, yesterday by a fuel flow issue, and yet they were able to achieve a decent lap time today. So I feel like, yes, of course, everyone's talking about Mercedes and they're getting all the media coverage because they seem a bit more buoyant in their interviews and a bit more forward-facing with that, and not hiding their enjoyment of this week, and because of the amount of laps that they've done. But I mean, I'd be very, very happy if you were a Ferrari fan with the time set today by both Lewis and Charles and the amount of mileage and laps they have covered this week, considering one of those days was completely in the wet. So, yeah, very, very interesting for sure. Very interesting. Dusko, these sounds mean nothing as we don't know if they're running full or empty. No, that's true. That is very true. All full throttle. That is true to me. The Honda one, I think, does sound different because they're definitely not running full speed there. The blue light indicates that. So, the Aston, Mark, could be the fastest on the grid. Have you pivoted to a comedy show? No, I have said this for quite some time, Mark. I have said this for some time. Look, if Honda cook, and Honda are only supplying engines to one team, which is Aston, and if Adrian Newey cooks with his aero design, Aston Martin, this nightmare that is Lance Stroll, could be in possession with a championship-winning car. There is a reality out there. If you believe in the multiverse theory, there is a reality out there where this could happen, and it could very well happen in this reality, in this universe. I'm just saying, but we'll see. Time will tell, of course. But but him having possession of that car doesn't necessarily mean he would get the most out of that car. So, you know, if your grandma had wheels, should be a bicycle. I know. I'm just saying. Add to that, Mercedes have also done 200 kilometers on a filming day for extra data. That is true. And Ferrari have yet to do their 200 kilometers filming day. So they only did the 15 kilometers that were available to them for their demonstration day, which they did with the first reveal of their car. That's why Lewis Hamilton's car stopped out on track, and people was like, oh, Lewis's car, the Ferrari's already stopped. That's because they were like, we do not want to go into that over that 15 kilometer range, because we want to probably test out different parts, take the data we've gathered from this week at the Shakedown, and utilize that with the 200 kilometers they have available for another day, the filming day. So Mercedes have already done their filming day, which was at a wet Silverstone. Ferrari still have those 200 kilometers to use between now and Bahrain. So it could be a very, very good decision for them. We'll be able to tell so much more on the next test once we see onboards. Yeah, that's going to be really interesting, Connor. I'm really intrigued to see that. So, but touching on Laurent Mekies, shall we see what he had to say here? I know it's been on screen for a little time. Some of you may have read this already, but for those that haven't, he said it was an incredible job by the team trackside and back on campus to get the car back on track for Friday. There have been some long nights to ensure we got a third day of running. Max was in the car all day, and he too got over 100 laps on the clock, giving insightful and beyond valuable feedback as we continue to learn about his car and PU. We've got a lot to take away from this week, and Max's experience and detail of engineering will help us shape the preparations for Bahrain and beyond. In terms of what we were expecting from the power unit in these first 3 days, I could only stress how proud we are of everyone back at base who delivered us this PU. So touching on this element here where he says Max's experience and detail of engineering, I did say yesterday that if they were unable to get this car out on track today and get Max to provide undoubtedly valuable feedback in dry conditions, that would be a big that would be big for a big missed opportunity for Red Bull, because Max is very knowledgeable in obviously just he's setting up cars and his information with the engineering and so forth. He's a 4-time world champion for a reason, and he knows what he wants in a car. And as good as Isaac Hadjar is, and he'll have a brilliant career, no doubt, he hasn't got the experience in F1 that Max has. And to not be able to get that car out on track today would have been such a big loss for them. But they were able to do over 100 laps, and that will be valuable information for Red Bull. Lance could still have the fastest car, and it won't make a difference. That's very true, and exactly. That's what I'm kind of I'm getting at. I hope these cars are good, because looks-wise, they're probably close to my favourite ever. I agree. Yeah, I really do. I really like the looks of them, and I just hope everything that we're hearing from the drivers translates to good racing. And I think if the drivers are excited, that's a good indication that it's going to provide some good racing. So. Dusko, question of the night. If Ferrari actually do get it right, will they have a problem of who to favour? Already getting into, shall we say, Scarlet rules? Is it Scarlet Red? Scarlet rules. It's going to be going from a performance nightmare to a teammate nightmare. I think if this was the old Ferrari, they would have had a number one for sure. But I think they will let them fight it out. I think we will see to a certain extent, I think we would see something akin to Papaya rules. I really do. I think we're in different times with F1. Lewis and Charles aren't as nice. No, it would definitely be a very different battle for sure. You only have to look at how Charles has treated battling Lewis out on track when they have gone wheel to wheel a few times last year. And I've picked up on it that Charles has got his elbows out big time over Lewis this season. So for them to be, I mean, look, if you think F1 Twitter or F1 online was mad with Max versus Lewis, or with Oscar versus Lando, you ain't seen nothing yet. If Charles and Lewis go toe to toe, oh my god, that is gonna be spicy for sure. That is gonna be spicy, and yeah, because Charles' fans, I don't know if anyone has kind of got caught up in the Charles sphere on Twitter. Yeah. So, but it'll be interesting. It'll be interesting. So, Leclerc will be furious in that case. He knows he's number one. I don't think Charles is number one. I really don't think he is. And look, the higher ups. I've always said this before. What if you're the owner of Ferrari? Who would you prefer to win F1? Right? Who would you prefer from a business perspective? Let's just look at it from a business perspective, okay? Who is better for Ferrari to win the World Championship? Charles Leclerc, who, of course, has been there for many years now and is synonymous already with kind of Ferrari. He's won multiple races with them, and he'll be going for his first world title. Or Lewis Hamilton, who many consider to be one of the greatest of all time. Some do consider him to be the greatest of all time. 7 world championships, equal with Michael Schumacher. They've spent multi-millions of pounds more on him than they have Charles Leclerc. And you have the opportunity to create history, not just with Ferrari, but in the sport itself, with Lewis Hamilton winning his official 8th title. Like, it's, from a business perspective, Lewis Hamilton winning a world title, his 8th world title with Ferrari, is one of those news stories that would make front page news. There's very few stories in sports that break to the front page, that break that barrier of outside of the fan base. And those who don't follow F1 will know that Lewis has won a championship with Ferrari. And it'd be the same as if Tiger Woods won another major. I mean, it was kind of like that when he won the Masters, again, when no one saw it. When Lionel Messi won the World Cup and things like that. So there are certain individuals where they do, to a certain extent, like, go beyond the sport. I don't think anyone still is bigger than the sport, but there are those, their names carry weight. I mean, look at the news cycle when Lewis announced he was moving to Ferrari, or when it came out he was moving to Ferrari. I mean, my goodness, like, it was everywhere. There's very few individuals in sport that can do that. And so, yeah, that's just purely from a business perspective. Of course, if you're a Charles fan, you want him to win it. So, and ultimately for Ferrari, yes, if they have a preference, that's who it would be. But ultimately, they just want to win the championship again because it's been so long. So, yeah, I imagine for Ferrari, they would much rather be in that problem than not have that problem, you know? So, it's very much one of those. So, Mattia Binotto for the Audi team today. Don't like it from that angle. But anyway, Mattia Binotto on a steep learning curve for the Audi F1 team. Arguably had the most difficult week with multiple stoppages on track with the engine. I would sum up that there is a lot to learn, and we are learning a lot. No shit. Sorry. So if you look at the very first day, a lot of problems stopping us, slowing down the run plan as well on day 2. Again, this morning, I think some problems. Again, learning, but still some mileage done, some laps done, and valuable data gathered for the team. And the more we run, the more we learn. I think we're really at a good stage. And that's the thing. Look, I'm not... One, I say here that they have had the most difficult week out of everyone. Yeah, that's true. However, it's still testing. That's the whole reason of this week, is to find out those gremlins and do that here rather than at Bahrain, which Williams will be doing at the end of the day. So it's a very, very positive week for Audi to be able to run as many laps as they have done with a brand new power unit and have those issues now rather than later on in the season. So you keep getting the subscribers only message when you try to type, but you're subscribed though, Rabbit, aren't you? So yeah, we do have subscribers only on. I've just left that on for always because, of course, the chat will eventually get out of hand, obviously, when the races start again, which I'm really looking forward to. So, yeah, Audi, I mean, they still did 3 days of running. They went out there when they wanted to, and at least they made it here, you know? They already did a filming day in Barcelona prior to this, or a shakedown, or... I don't know if... This is the thing. I don't know who did a demonstration day and who actually did a filming day. So some of these teams may still have 200 kilometers of further testing before Bahrain available to them. So look at that. There's a lot of contrast in that image, but fascinating insight here into the Aston Martin from a team member who was at the heart of the process. This is on another level. Is this from LinkedIn? Oh, we have a fabrication leader at Aston Martin. Okay. Okay. I do have a LinkedIn, by the way. So, let's read this. This is interesting. AMR 26, Neil Zambardi Christie, the fabrication leader at Aston Martin F1 team. My 25th F1 car build. Oh my goodness. But my first newie car. There's been some great cars over the years and a couple of shockers, but this one is on another level. The design and attention to detail is incredible, but what's more impressive is the way in which the entire team has risen to the challenges created by the designs and time frames involved. Every single member of staff has had a hand in this, from the factory cleaners right up to the technical directors, because it's a team effort and everyone should be proud of what we've created. A lot of people have worked crazy hours for months on end to get here, and the strain on them and their families and loved ones gets massively underestimated. But their commitment and dedication and sheer bloody hard work is what's got us to this point. So they deserve way more credit than they'll probably ever get. But it's a big thanks from me to all my colleagues, a fantastic team effort, and I'm proud to be part of. Time will tell if it's any good, but if it goes as fast as it looks, we could be in for a good year. Interesting. So Aston Martin, very, very buoyant. And I do imagine, I mean, how can not Adrian Newey, the most successful designer in F1 history, joining Aston Martin and having an input into your car? I mean, that's what dreams are made of. That's what you join the sport if you're a designer, as an example, of an F1 car, or even just an engineer or whatever. Like, that's what you dream of, is to be able to work with someone of that pedigree. And he's clearly brought a difference in view and a difference in direction. And, yeah, made everyone stand up straighter. So, yeah, we'll see if that translates out on track. It'll be so interesting this year if, let's say... Yes, they do make the fastest car on the grid, right? And Lance Stroll isn't able to get the most out of it, but Alonso is. What happens then? What happens then? Like, does Lawrence Stroll go, son, like, you ain't it? Like, I just don't ever see it happening. I don't ever see Lawrence Stroll ever getting rid of his son. Like, you have to be forced into doing so. But yeah, it'd be such an interesting dynamic to see. And I do think to a certain extent there would be shenanigans behind the scenes if they were the two fastest cars out on track. And it's a championship battle between the two of them. There's no way they're going to let Fernando Alonso win that team. So win that championship. I think at least. But yeah, really intrigued to see how they get on for sure. Really intrigued. A four-way manufacturer battle all season would be great. That would be unbelievable, but I don't think we've ever really had that. So we'll see. We'll see. Lando's odds of winning twice in a row have tumbled at the bookies. They've finally picked up on it, have they? That's what he said earlier on. Yeah, so just adding a little bit to what he said earlier on. I don't think we captured this. He said, in terms of just understanding the car and balance, we have a lot less downforce than previous years. This car's generation is actually a little bit more fun to drive, is what Lewis has said. And it seems to be that many have echoed those faults. Many have echoed those exact sentiments. So, yeah. Very interesting week, for sure. We still don't know the full story. We don't know how the teams are going to be in the pecking order when it comes to Melbourne. The start of the season, as always, just because one team is good at one track doesn't mean they're going to be good at the other. But it's shaping up to be well. And I think the good thing for us as fans is to see that these teams didn't break down at every opportunity this week. It's very different. They seem to be on top of things now. And just as technology and engineering gets better and better year on year, the same is obviously that's no more pertinent to F1. And just because they were struggled back in 2014, we've been using kind of similar type engines for over a decade now. So yeah, we'll see how we're still yet to see, of course, how it's going to translate into a race weekend and in racing conditions. But Bahrain is a different test for these guys, a different type of circuit, different track conditions. It should be slightly warmer, so we'll see. And as we've touched upon as well, not many of these teams, we still don't know which fuel these teams are running. We don't know if they're running the fully sustainable fuels that are going to be used in the season, or whether they're kind of using the non-sustainable fuels at the moment, which they were allowed to run this week. So that's also something to take in consideration. But I would presume if you've got that sustainable fuel ready, why would you not use that now? It gives you an advantage if that's what's going to be used throughout the season. Why would you not use it and use this as exactly as desired? A shakedown to test the engine and make sure systems are all go. But I think if you're a Mercedes and Ferrari fan, I think, and McLaren, I think there's a lot of things to be positive about, for sure. There'll be some interesting battles this season with teammates, yeah. Definitely, especially with the inter-team battle is going to be very interesting, especially if your car isn't able to perform. That's really where your own competition is going to be. And this season, a lot of drivers are out of contract at the end of the year. They're all positioning themselves to see how the season unfolds, so that they can then try and slide their way into a team that has a better car. But I think a lot of this season depends on Red Bull, to be honest, when it comes to driver moves. If Max Verstappen isn't happy at Red Bull and he wants to move, he's going to be knocking on the door of whichever team is the quickest, for sure. Whether that be Mercedes, whether that be Aston, whether that be Ferrari, he will be there, knocking on the door. And that's when things are going to get interesting. So hopefully not a year of team orders. It could happen. Yeah, I mean, there will always be a factor. There will always be a factor. And I think the problem is with team orders as well, is that, especially if you've got a team like Ferrari who haven't won a championship in so many years, team orders may probably come into play. Papaya rules supposedly are still going to be a thing this season. That's what Andrea Estella has said. So, but yeah, a very, very interesting week. There's a final look at your overall tally. Mercedes 499 laps this week. Ferrari 435. Haas 300. Haas. Could we see a sneaky season from Haas this year? Toyota more involved this year as well. A naming partner of Haas. It's Haas TGR. So they're becoming closer and closer to having full running capacity of Haas, of course. Alpine 345. Mercedes and engines and gearboxes this year. Racing Bulls 319. Red Bull 303. Racing Bulls actually did more laps than Red Bull. McLaren 287. Not as many as they'd like, with a fuel flow issue yesterday, which hampered them to less than 50 laps of Oscar Piastri. Audi 239, Cadillac 164, and Aston Martin 53, and Williams were a no-go this week. So, I don't think there's really any issues with reliability, that's for sure. It's only really the new boys who had issues with reliability. I think RB will be better than expected, and he'll stay. You think Red Bull will be better than expected, and Max will stay? I hope we see Ferrari and Mercedes battle at the front. That would be a great battle. Yeah. Max is going to be unintentionally hilarious this season if it doesn't go well. I laugh so much when he's getting asked completely normal questions and he reacts like he's changing a terrible nappy. Yeah, he does. He is a bit out of pocket sometimes, isn't he? You're like, that was a valid question, Max, and you've just completely, like, come back with a bit of a unhinged comment. I mean, each to their own. But that is sort of... I know there may be some of you who are Dutch here, but I've worked with many of the Dutch in my time in many different industries, and it is very much a trait of yours. You can be very blunt. You say it how it is. So yeah, you need to expect that when you're speaking to someone from the Netherlands for sure. Williams just playing the surprise card. We'll see. We'll see. I don't think so. I mean, there were images today. Actually, I'll get it up. There were images today that were taken of Williams. And I'll show you. Let's grab it up. So this is from Williams themselves. And I say images, it's actual video of Alex Albon and Carlos Sainz getting fitted into the car. A bit late, if you ask me, to get fitted into the car. And this is something that, of course, James Vowles alluded to, didn't he, in his announcement the other day, that he doesn't know the weight of the car until it's put together. And this is a clear indication that they've only just put the car together because they're only just doing a seat fit. I mean, that is... Really? I mean, it's the 30th of Jan, guys. They've blurred out the airbox, which is interesting. But this is what they're doing a seat fit, of course, and just a driver fit to make sure, obviously, the monocoque is okay. This is basically the monocoque. This is like the cockpit, basically. This is the life cell element of the F1, which the car is built around. In case, obviously, there's any accidents and so forth, this is a lot more rigid and solid. This is the area of the car that if the car itself everything is connected to this, and everything is designed to break away from it, and this is the life cell that keeps the driver protected. But yeah, bit bizarre really, but they're only just doing... That just shows really how far behind they are. I don't know what comments people have put in there. Sensor in the air intake is hilarious. What do you mean that they're What do you mean you are posting seat fits at the end of the first week of testing? Yeah, interesting to say the least, eh? Not ideal for them. Unlike Audi, who are able to get on track. Unlike Cadillac, who are able to get on track and stuff. So, but yeah, there we go. Seat fit, love that phrase. 3 strips of carbon fibre and some foam padding. Seat is very loose, yeah. But there we go, guys. That is it, really. That is the end of this week of the first shakedown of 2026. Great to see these cars out on track. However, how much did we... I mean, great to see these cars out on track from a distance and from the bushes. But Bahrain is in a few weeks' time. That will be the 11th to the 13th of February. And then the 18th to the 20th of February. I will probably do a live stream... I will probably try and catch the last hour, which is all they're going to be providing us when it comes to F1 Thursday and Friday, where there will be 100% coverage, guys, of testing. So, yeah, I'll be live for then. Of course, I'll do some content in between that as well and go live for you guys and have a chat. I've enjoyed doing these and catching up with you all. I hope you've enjoyed them too. It's made me look forward to getting home from work and clicking that live button. No smooth operation data for Williams, unfortunately. No. You're surprised the sound of the F1 car still remains like last year. I thought the bigger electric input. Well, they do, and I think they do sound different when you compare them to last year. They do definitely sound louder. I think it depends on the sort of video recording footage that people are using and the microphones and that. So, but I think they definitely are louder, and they do definitely sound a bit different. So, Val said, break everything. We didn't know that includes the spirit of these drivers. Yeah. Please keep booking the streams in a day in advance. I will do. I will always try and do that, because then you guys are aware. You can turn your notifications on and you get notified half an hour beforehand. I've noticed that is the way to do things, rather than just go live on a whim, to be honest with you. But if you want to ensure that you never miss a live stream, hit that bell button, turn those notifications on, because you'll always be alerted when I do click that live button, or half an hour before the stream goes live, if it is a bit more of a spontaneous one. But yeah, appreciated you guys for tuning in and listening in throughout the week. We've tried to run down the week as best as we possibly can, but it's a shame that we weren't able to get better access to it. But credit to the journalists and the people who've been able to provide us information this week. Soy Motor, Adam Cooper there, the race, all the journalists who turned up and took shots with a spy lens from a kilometre away and so forth. So, yeah, credit to everyone who was able to provide us with the information this week, because I think it was a big miss and a big. I understand the teams wanting to keep things private, but at the same time, the fans are the ones who make this sport as lucrative as it is. If it wasn't, if it didn't have as many eyes on it, you wouldn't be able to get as many sponsors and as many lucrative sponsors as you currently are getting right now. And don't shut the fans out. Don't take us for advantage. And at the end of the day, we are just there to support and enjoy F1, and many of us understand that testing is testing, and that if you're there to stress test these parts and to ultimately push these cars to the limits to know what these cars are capable of, and we aren't gonna, some will ridicule you, but the true fans won't ridicule you and will understand exactly what you're trying to do. So don't shut us out again, basically. I mean, I'm saying that while you're shutting us out in Bahrain in the first week, in a couple of weeks' time, with just by limiting it to 1 hour per day at the end of the day coverage for us. But look, use testing as a reason to hype people up. But I think this has ultimately got more negative feedback by this being closed doors and extreme security measures than it has positive feedback and been seen in a positive light. So yeah, whether my viewpoint is taken at all or not, but that's my 2 cents over it. So yeah, we want to see cars out on track ultimately, and we want to enjoy it while the majority of us have to go and attend work for a living, whatever capacity that may be, whatever form that may be. So yeah, but anyway, that's how I'm ending that stream. Lovely to see you all, guys. 2026 fully underway. Only a couple of weeks now until we head to Bahrain, and yeah, it won't be long till we see these cars at Melbourne on track, racing and pushing for the first time. See you guys shortly. Thanks all. Have a good weekend. Bye.